Alright, next phase, we have to mount our power conversion module. As you notice, I've got the wires soldered and heat shrunk, and we're going to mount it roughly here. Now, we can do this two ways. We can do it the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is to punch one hole, mount the screw. These are 632 screws, stainless steel, and then bolt it together and punch the other hole. The hard way is to actually try to measure them out and get them, and I never get them right when I do that. So we're just going to take center punch here, get it centered up. I now have my dimple for the drill bit to go into. Let's go ahead and punch a hole here. Okay. Knock out the shavings. Attach one side of it. Get it straightened up pretty well. Center up. It's very important that you get the center punch centered on the hole there. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and take this apart, drill the other hole. You've seen me drill one, you don't need to see me drill the other one. I'll get that all mounted up, and the bottom piece will be completed. Our next step in the conversion of the fluorescent light to LED power is to cut the strips. Like I said, it's very flexible this way, but not very flexible this way, so it's not going to turn a corner. So we have to cut them into lengths, and then at the very ends, if you notice, right here, there are these copper pads at these intervals, and if we cut directly across those, we can actually solder to those and put a wire to jumper it around. So we need to cut these to the appropriate length and make enough strips. Now I have a couple here left over from an earlier project. They're a little short, but they will suffice the needs for this project. So what that means is we have to stretch these out. This section here, remember when I tested this, I found that there was one section that worked and one section that didn't. Well, this was actually separate from it. And it's approximately the right length, so it'll work. So we just have to reel this out and start folding it over at the appropriate lengths. And we want to have them roughly equal. Just unwrap it off the reel here. And we fold it back and forth. And that gives us, well, how'd that happen? Oh, there. The reel's broken. It's okay, I'm not going to be using it for anything else anyway. And then I will end up taking one of these ends off, since I don't need two plugs. But if we look at it this way, make this, that's a little long, so maybe we'll have a little stub left over. Loop it around, we'll want to cut it there, and yeah, we'll have a little bit left over at the end. It's going to be a little tricky to get right, but there'll be a little bit left at the end of it. So I'm going to cut these strips up. I'll be using a pair of scissors to do that. And then I'm going to take some wire, make some loops, nice generous loop, so that it doesn't put any stress on anything, and solder these down to these little copper pads. And these copper pads are small, that's why we have to use small wire. It's going to be some fine work, it's going to take me a while, but we'll take care of that, and then I'll get back to the next phase, which will be actually attaching the strips down to the backing. Alright, we have our strips all set up here. We have jumpers soldered at both ends so that we now have what is effectively one continuous strip with one continuous circuit. Next step before we attach these strips is we want to make sure that everything works. We want to test these things along the way as we go, so it's time to test it. We plug in our end strip, plug in our fixture, and apply power. And look at that. They all light up. That's a fair amount of light there. That's easily as much light as being put off from the overhead fluorescents, and I don't even have them all pointed the right way. So this is what we wanted. This now works. The next step is to attach these strips to the reflector. Now what I've got is 5 strips here, so I'm going to have 2 in the trough, 1 on the ridge, and 2 in the trough. This reflector needs to be prepared. It's an old fixture, so it's actually quite dirty. I'm going to have to scrub it down with some lacquer thinner and get it all good and cleaned up. And then we'll proceed with starting to attach the strips with our glue. These actually have an adhesive backing on them, but that adhesive, I have discovered, is not anywhere near sufficient enough to hold them up to these backers, so we're going to be using an additional adhesive to go with that. We'll get into that in a minute. Alright, now we have our reflector cleaned up. I also scuffed it down a little bit to break the gloss on the enamel with 3M green scratchy scouring pad. And that's just to rough it up. It's been washed off with first simple green and then some wash lacquer thinner. It's cleaned up and ready to go now. Like I said, the adhesive on the back of the strips is not sufficient to hold it in place in a vertical situation. So we're going to be holding it up with shoe glue. We'll be putting a dab of this every couple inches, and then while it's drying, we'll hold the strip down in place with some strong adhesive tape. We'll do that. We'll put that on the wires, just a little strip at a time, to make sure that it will stay in place. So we start at this back end, tape down the wire, roll it over, and start pulling off the adhesive, the backing to the adhesive strip. Take our additional adhesive, add a little dab of it. Doesn't really take a lot. Little shoe glue goes a long way. And press it down in place. Then we go a couple more inches. Another little dab there. Stuff's goopy and messy. Stick it down. Couple more inches. And we just keep walking that down the reflector. Like I said, the tape is just there to hold it in place while the adhesive is drying. Make sure it sticks in place and stays where we want it. We want these pretty much oriented straight down. It's right at the edge of the reflector. And the next pass will come in here. So, I'm going to go ahead and take care of that, and we'll be back in a minute.